Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a biological phenomenon that is frankly incredibly frustrating but also completely universal: vanishing dreams. I mean, have you ever wondered why we forget up to 95% of our nightly adventures? It's crazy. So let's just dive right into the neurobiology of your sleeping brain to figure out exactly why this happens, and honestly, more importantly, how we can fix it.
We have absolutely all experienced this. You wake up from this profound, super vivid nocturnal adventure. Maybe you were flying or, navigating some bizarre, complex landscape. But then, literally within seconds of opening your eyes, you feel that memory just slip through your fingers like sand. And no matter how hard you try to hold on to it, the details just evaporate. Now, in waking life, this kind of rapid memory loss would send you straight to a doctor. But during sleep, it's completely normal. As sleep researchers constantly remind us, dreams are notoriously fleeting and difficult to remember. But here is the real fascinating twist. This rapid forgetting, it's not a glitch in your mental software. No, it's actually a highly complex, deeply intentional feature of our neurobiology. Which brings us to part 1, inside the sleeping brain. So scientists actually call this phenomenon dream amnesia. The reason we suffer from this massive, rapid loss of memory right when we wake up is basically because the brain systems responsible for perceiving experiences and the ones responsible for recording those experiences are operating on entirely different schedules during the night. They are literally completely out of sync. Let's break this down. During REM sleep, which is when our absolute most vivid dreams happen, our brain regions start acting very differently. The amygdala, which is our emotional center, goes into overdrive. It's highly active, making our dreams feel intensely real and super emotional. But then the prefrontal cortex, our logic and attention center, is hypoactive, meaning it's turned way down. And then there's the hippocampus. This region is absolutely crucial for moving short-term memories into long-term storage. But during sleep, it is largely just taken offline. Late fakes to wake up. Honestly, it helps to think of the hippocampus as this incredibly sleepy file clerk. When you first wake up, that clerk takes a good couple of minutes to fully boot up, grab their coffee, and start working. So you have this incredibly brief window where a dream is just sitting right there in your short-term memory, but because your internal file clerk isn't fully awake yet to actually put those notes into the long-term filing cabinet, poof, the memory just vanishes. And this brings us to a really fascinating difference between people. It turns out high dream recallers, those people who seem to remember their dreams almost every single day, they actually show way more activity in this information processing hub called the temporoparietal junction. This actually makes them much more responsive to environmental sounds, which causes these frequent, really brief memory-saving awakenings during the night. Studies show these brief awakenings last an average of 2 minutes for high recallers, giving that sleepy file clerk just enough time to process the dream. Low recallers, they only get about 1 minute. Less activity, fewer awakenings. Let's move on to part 2, the brain's chemical cocktail. Because it's not just sleepy brain regions at play here. Our neurochemistry is actively brewing this chemical cocktail perfectly designed for temporary amnesia. During REM sleep, 2 vital neurotransmitters behave in really unusual ways. First, acetylcholine spikes to levels almost identical to when we are fully awake. That's what generates those vivid, wake-like arousals and dream images. But at the exact same time, noradrenaline, which is absolutely crucial for retaining memories, just plummets to very low levels. So the brain is stimulated enough to create this wild experience, but it's chemically deprived of the actual tools it needs to store it. Furthermore, memory consolidation studies show that the stress hormone cortisol gradually peaks during those late-night REM sleep phases, and elevated cortisol severely disrupts the ability of your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex to basically bind memory fragments together into a coherent whole. So instead of a nice, neatly bound memory, we get these fragmented, super bizarre storylines that are just incredibly difficult to grasp once we finally wake up. All of this shifting chemistry creates what researchers call a state-dependent memory trap. You know when you walk into a room and instantly forget why you went in there, but then you remember as soon as you walk back to the first room? It's kind of like that. Once your brain transitions out of this totally unique, cortisol-soaked, low noradrenaline sleep state and enters normal waking life, the context shifts drastically. The memory trace of the dream becomes incredibly difficult to access just because your brain is now functioning in a completely different chemical state. Okay, so the brain is clearly working against us. But that brings us to part 3, interference versus dream salience.
What happens the exact moment you open your eyes is really the final hurdle here. Researchers Parkin and Horton ran this really cool experiment to test dream recall strength. They discovered that waking up and immediately engaging in a demanding cognitive task, like, say, focusing on a complex visual puzzle, causes massive interference. Because your waking brain's capacity to encode new information is so strong, turning your attention to a demanding task effectively and permanently overwrites that super fragile dream memory. In fact, the control group in the study, who were allowed to wake up gently without any immediate tasks, had significantly higher recall strength. However, there is an exception to this interference rule, and it's called salience. Dreams that are highly salient, meaning they are just packed with intense emotions, bizarre characters, or overwhelming joy, they often possess a memory trace that is strong enough to pierce right through that waking interference. Basically, if a dream is emotionally important enough or intensely weird enough, it commands enough cognitive attention to practically force your brain to remember it. So, how do we outsmart all of this? That brings us to our final section, part 4, how to remember your dreams. Let's bypass that sleepy file clerk. The absolute most important thing you can do happens the exact second you wake up. Step 1, keep your eyes closed. Step 2, stay completely still. By eliminating new visual and physical stimuli, you prevent that output interference we just talked about. You are actively giving your hippocampus the crucial 2 minutes it needs to catch up and encode the memory. And while you're lying still, step 3, try to grab onto the last fragment of the dream you remember and literally replay the memory backwards to reconstruct the narrative. You can also just hack your nightly routine using the science we've covered. For example, drink water before bed. This gently forces middle-of-the-night awakenings, which mimics the brain patterns of those high dream recallers we talked about. Some researchers also recommend taking vitamin B6 supplements, which have been shown to generate overly vivid dreams. And crucially, repeat a simple mantra like remember, remember, right as you fall asleep. And make absolutely sure to keep a dream journal right beside your bed so you can log fragments instantly. And if you really want to level up, try meditation. A study actually showed that practicing mindfulness meditation for just 20 minutes a day significantly increases relaxed theta waves in your prefrontal cortex. And this boost directly correlates with enhanced dream recall. In fact, among experienced meditators, high theta activity is strongly linked to a higher frequency of lucid dreaming, which is where you actually become consciously aware that you're dreaming and can literally control the environment. How cool is that? Finally, the mere act of keeping that dream diary physically conditions your brain. As researchers point out, keeping a dream diary conditions a person to view remembering dreams as important. Here's a great psychological trick. Write down tomorrow's date in your journal right before you go to sleep. This simple action asserts a conscious intention to your subconscious mind. It's like building a vital bridge between your waking and sleeping states. So there you have it. By understanding the biology of your sleeping brain, the chemical cocktails, the sleepy hippocampus, and our huge vulnerability to waking interference, and by practicing these really simple science-backed habits, you are finally equipped to capture those lost memories. So as you lay your head down this evening, I want to leave you with this question. What secrets will your mind reveal tonight? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy dreaming!